Okay, so my name is Emily Williams. This is this Public Speaking 205/016 class. I am giving the introductory speech, and the topic for the speech is the places I've traveled. Does your world seem small? Does it in any way ever feel like your experiences and your knowledge of real life is limited in any way? It may seem like a trivial thing, but for me, traveling has changed all of that. This past summer, I had the opportunity to travel to Mexico, and it has really broadened my horizons. And my three favorite places that I traveled to that I learned the most from are Cuernavaca, Xochicalco, and Taxco. So the first place that is my favorite is Cuernavaca. The reason it's my favorite is because it was my home base while I was staying in Mexico, and it's a close-knit community filled with very, very lovely people that I got to meet, and it wasn't a tourist site. There were some tourist places that you could go to, but for the most part, it was just a small-knit unity. And while staying in it by taking taxis and having dinner at the little taco stands or going to get Mexican Starbucks coffee in the morning, we were able to learn a lot about the community politics, the national politics, and what they as a people stood for and believed. Their government is deeply affected because of the corrupt politicians that they have, and all the people as a united front do not believe in it and they do not stand for it. And I came at a time when the presidential election was happening, the biggest one in Mexican history. And so that was a big controversial topic that happened while I was in Mexico. And I learned a lot from the people about what they thought about their current government and how they thought it would change. Mexico has a stigma around it that it is the most dangerous place ever, and it is. But in this community, I did not feel at risk of any violations whatsoever at any point, because the community really looks after each other, and they are not the gangs that Mexico is associated with. And they look out for one another. So if you're walking down the street, everybody, all the families, they have your back. And I learned a lot about the community and what they stood for and how they did not associate time and what you're going to do with your life like the people in America do. And it was really refreshing, and it opened up my mind to the endless possibilities and about how the world could be through the minds of simple people who don't even have running water. My second favorite place in Mexico was Xochicalco. This was an ancient Aztec and Mayan ruin. We went and took an entire day trip to this place. It used to be a university. It wasn't just Aztec, it wasn't just Mayans, but both combined. It was the one place in Central and South America where two different civilizations over centuries came together to be united under one calendar. And their calendars are etched in stone on these giant pyramids. And although most of them were destroyed because of a recent Mexican earthquake, we got to see most of what they had there, and we got to climb up it. And it was on top of a mountaintop. And getting to see all the mountains below was such a humbling experience, just to see God's creation and how the ancient people who live there are so intelligent and how their intellect surpasses what we can even comprehend. And our tour guide said that if you get to the top of the pyramid on the top of the mountain and you feel like you've been there before, then you were actually once royalty in your past life. And if you didn't, then you were a village person. And I sure did feel like a village person, because I got up there and I was like, I have not been here before, but I am really amazed by everything I'm looking at. So it was a incredibly enlightening experience, and I am so grateful that I had that ability to travel to Xochicalco. And I did actually buy a shawl while I was there that had their calendar markings that they had etched in stone. So that was my second favorite place to go. My third favorite place in Mexico was Taxco. This is a large city on a mountaintop, and it looks exactly like Italy. This city was heavily influenced by the European settlers that came over. And although it looks like Italy, it's the Spaniard influence over history, and the two look very similar. and they just had white buildings and brick churches going up in a spiral around the mountain. And on the very top was a statue of Jesus, much like the one that you would find in Rio up at the top. And we got to climb to that. And the reason I loved Taxco so much was that it's a silver mine, and it is the biggest silver making mine in Mexico. We toured one of the mines, and then we went to several of the stores below it that sell all of their homemade silver jewelry. They had just so much of it. It was amazing. And I got to see Frida Kahlo's original silver necklace that was mined and crafted in Taxco and given to her as a present. And then when she died, she gave it back to the museum in Taxco. And I got to try it on, which was an incredible experience because I got to wear the exact same necklace that Frida Kahlo wore. And I also loved it because it is a big tourist attraction. And so the locals who live there will line up on the streets during the day, vending the things that they have made and sold. So just little bracelets, pieces of yarn, baskets, anything to catch their attention, tourists' attention. And it was also deeply saddening to see the amount of homeless people who were on the streets, and they were just trying to sell anything and everything that they could. And lots and lots of stray dogs, because there are no leash laws, spay or neuters laws in Mexico, and so everywhere you went there was a dog of some sort, and their favorite place to go were on roofs. So every time you would walk by, there would just be dogs lining the roofs of where you were walking. And it was sad to see it, but at the same time it was funny, because if they didn't like you, they just, like little chihuahuas, they would just be barking at you, and they were lined up on the roofs in Mexico. And so I really did love Taxco, although I did get a severe migraine and headache because we were in a van going around the spiral in the mountain, and all the way up to the top we were losing altitude, and when we climbed to the statue of Jesus, I nearly passed out because there was absolutely no oxygen whatsoever. But it was such an incredible experience, especially getting up to the top. And so those are my 3 favorite places in Mexico. I am blessed to have been able to have that experience. I have not traveled many places, but the places I have gone have completely changed my perspective on life and what I want for my life. And I recommend to anybody traveling wherever they could, whenever they can, at some point in their life. It's never too late or too early to travel, and it is never too late or too early to change your perspective on life and gain revolutionary ideas. At one point in my life, my world seemed small, but now it seems infinitely much bigger.